Hey guys, it's Mike with Team OCG, and we're coming at you tonight with our April 1st Twilight or Lightsworn build. A couple of people have been asking for it. It took us a little bit of time, maybe a week or so, to kind of go back to the drawing board and figure out exactly the direction we wanted to go with the deck. There's a lot of different versions of it floating around right now. It seems to always be a pretty popular rogue pick, and we really like what it can do, especially with first turn plays, and in playing it, like, there is absolutely a luck factor, but it also has a very high ceiling, and it has a lot of really cool boards that you can make if you're going first that are very difficult for your opponent to answer. So that's one factor that kind of drew us to this particular build, but we're interested in what you guys have to think. So make sure to subscribe, make sure to comment and all that fun stuff, click the bell. We also want to know what you guys are looking for as far as videos. Obviously, right now, everybody's kind of stuck at home. So we're interested as far as, what do you guys want to see with regards to our content? Like, is it something that you want to see dual videos? Do you want to see more deck profiles, kind of like this? Do you want us to do, what are some other options that we were thinking of?
Test hands.
Yeah, test hands are another cool one. Showcases where we look at top decks, things like that.
Look at the market, look at the meta, anything really.
There's a lot of market watches online, but that's something we're definitely happy to do. But yeah, please just make sure to comment and let us know, and we'll get right on that. So anyway, I'm going to jump into the deck profile. So again, this is April 1st Lightsworn. And this is going to be similar to somewhat to the build you saw a couple of weeks ago when we uploaded, but I'm going to go through some of our changes and what we did. So we always run one Judgment Dragon. This is a really good card at 1, but it's something that kind of remains true to the original spirit and the original idea of the deck. And it's something that we really like with Starlight Schaefer, which we're playing in 3s, obviously. So you play 1 JD, you also play 1 Chaos Emperor Dragon. These are both board wipes, but at the same time, Chaos Emperor is very good in that with Safer, it becomes kind of a utility card, so you can use it to drop rank 8, or you can put it back in your hand and wait a turn, and then use it to answer, an opposing board. So those are helpful. 2 Levianair, and these are all the big dragons that we play. I've never felt you really need more than 2 of this guy. I feel like 2 or 3 would brick your hand personally, because remember, you can get these back with Safer, and you can search it with Safer as well. So those are the 4 big dragons we play. And then we're going to jump into the Lightsworn. So the idea here, we are playing, I believe it's 12 Lightsworn total. We play 3 Raiden. He is the best one. He's searchable by Rhoda as well. And he mills during the main phase. You also use him to make Minerva. Also use him to make your level 8 Synchros, which we're playing a couple more of this format. 2 Lila. Back row removal. 3 gets a little clumpy at times because it is a pretty hard normal summon. So this is typically a card that you want to normal summon to bait out your opposing cards. But 2 is good. You can search it. 2 Wolf. Again, the idea, whenever you play a deck that mills, there's 2 theories that I think you can kind of go in on Lightsworn. One is that you want to play maximum mill cards. And the idea being that the more you mill, the more advantage you're creating. Now, there is a luck factor involved there. You kind of have to also look at the play style of the individual. So when Jake plays this, he has no problem at all with 2 Wolves. And I think personally 3 would break your hand. We tried to max out on cards that not only gave us advantage when we milled them, but also weren't as dead draws as Wolf can be. So we're only playing 2 of that, and then in that similar line, we're playing only 1 Felice. Now this card, people often get confused. This only comes up off of monster effects. So if you mill it as a cost for Solar Recharge, you don't get to summon it up, which tends to happen for whatever reason often. So I would personally never play more than 1 of this card, but it is good at random times just to bait out cards, and it's another 4 that you can get out of your hand with a Goblin Dirk if need come. For 1-ofs, we play 1 Garoth, we play 1 Lumina. This is an interesting pick. The idea with this is your big play, your big push is summoning Minerva, right? So the idea that, you're only, even if I had a hand with 2 Luminas, I can't necessarily get to Minerva with that hand. So the more that we kind of tested and we played around with the builds, the less we found a need for 2 of this card. Especially considering you can recycle it with a number of cards that we're going to get into. Levianair is 1. But there's also Reborn. There's also cards to, add it back to your hand and whatnot. So this is a new addition, one Minerva, the Lightsworn Maiden. The idea here is that if we bring out Recover, which is our tuner replacement for Glow Up Bulb, we wanted another option to bring off of Needle Fiber or whatever his TCG friendly name is. And she is a tuner, so you can bring her out and kind of continue going on from there. It's also a Lightsworn name. So, it's helpful in that regard. It's obviously not something you necessarily want to draw. You either want to mill it or bring it off Needle Fiber if need be, but not bad. And then we play one of the Twilight Lumina. This card is really good. This card opens up a lot of plays with Levy and Air to just extend your board. It's also searchable. So I think that's 12 Lightsworns in total, if I remember correctly. For support cards, obviously 3 of Starliege Safer. This card is amazing. By far, one of the best cards in the deck. It lets you search your dragons. It lets you banish it when it's milled to add a dragon from your grave back to your hand. Really strong card, and it's just something that can be abused with Omega, and it's absolutely phenomenal. It really does make this deck much more playable in a current meta. We play 3 Honest. This card, again, it's a bit of an odd choice, but the idea was this is less of a dead draw than Wolf is, being that I can actually normal summon it. Also, the fact that it is a 4, you can still make Minerva with it if you need to, but the fact that no one reads this card and it just lets you out a lot of problem monsters makes it a really valuable card in my opinion. Now, a lot of people don't play this. A lot of people have cut this for consistency reasons, but in remaining true to the the original Lightsworn build, it's something that we decided to play, and it's honestly paying off. We really enjoy it. Along similar lines to that, 3 Necro Gardna. If you saw our first video on this, our reasoning behind this is pretty simple. You can chain this card, for those of you that don't know. And while it doesn't stack, which means if I banish it, let's say my opponent tries to call by, I can banish this in response to that and chain it and negates their first attack. But if I do 2 that way, it only negates their first attack still. But like, the fact that you can chain this card at all is incredible, and it's another ruling that for some reason people don't know. So anyone that played in the Twilight format knows that. Right now, however, a lot of people are not experienced with that ruling for whatever reason.
And it's a quick effect.
Yeah, that's what it is. Yeah, you can chain it, and like the fact that you can do that kind of makes it a lot more valuable than a lot of the other options, like the Spiritual Swords of Revealing Light or the what's the turtle? Electromagnetic Turtle. Plus, this is a 3, which does come up sometimes, especially with the new tuner, Hyper Magician, which you can bring off. Yeah, and you can make a Leviair with it, which we're playing as well to abuse it. Omega obviously can abuse that. For our Minerva package, you play 3 Goblin Dirk. This card is great. It gives you the board presence to make Minerva. It's also an Earth to make Naturia Beast. For our clowns, we play 2 Juggler, 2 of Hat Tricker, and then 1 of Trick Clown. The reason we're doing this ratio, 2 Juggler is good in the sense that I still want cards that I can mill off Minerva to give me advantage other than Wolf. Like, if I draw this, it's not totally a dead draw. I can normal summon this card. I could also wait to use its effect to protect me from a Boral Sword or something. But if I mill it, it's giving me a +1 as well. So 2 of that is perfect. 2 Hat Tricker. We didn't want to go 3 on this guy just because it is searchable. You can bring it back with Leviair or Levy and Air if you need to. Trick Clown lets you fetch either of them if they're in the graveyard. So this ratio has been working really well for us. And then our final monster, Recover. This is our tuner replacement for Glow Up Bulb. And the way we looked at a bunch of different builds again when we were trying to kind of figure out where the direction we were going to go in. Naturia Beast is just a huge card, and it seems to be a big card in any format. So we wanted to have access to it in this deck with Needle Fiber as well. So I think it's 34 monsters total. I think the deck is 46 cards in total. For magics or spells, you play 3 charge. This is staple. I'm not going to explain that. And then, of course, you play your 3 recharge. These are the cards you want to see, obviously, in your opening hand. They get your engine going, search out your pieces. We are doing 2 Pot of Avarice. Now, I personally think this is the perfect ratio of this card. I would never play 3 of it just because anytime you have it in your opening hand, even this deck, which I think this deck has a really easy time putting 5 monsters in the grave, There are some cards that I do not want to return off Avarice. So like Seifert, for example, or Necrogardna, or some of my big dragons, I rather fetch off Seifert, which can make this card kind of be, it can be a little awkward at times. And as a result, it could be dead early game as well. So I think 2 is the perfect number just to see it, but it does create the advantage. It's nice to have that back at 3. Last spells, Reincarnation. This card is good. It fixes your hand. You can discard a Necro or discard the Minerva to mill a card if you need to, but it just lets you get back your materials. Keep going. Reborn, similar idea. You're expanding your plays. Foolish and Rhoda. So it's going to be 46 cards total. And now, let me go into our extra deck, which changed a lot. So, we do 2 Minerva. In theory, we'd want to play 3 of it. It's just we have a lot of other cards that we found kind of a need for. And frankly, we never found a need for 3 of this. You can Avarice this back, by the way. So.
And just because it's a hard once per turn, like...
Yeah, that kind of hurts you, for sure.
Yeah.
2 is good. Exciton Knight, I like board wipes. Especially, again, at that local level meta where you're playing a lot of decks that have back rows. Like, a lot of guys just don't see that coming. It gives you a chance to drop him with Goblin Dirk or with Wolf or with Hat Tricker and just kind of went out from there. We do play Dingirsu, and again, this is a card that I really have liked in the sense that it just protects your first turn setup. So, in testing, what we were typically doing is using Levianer, and Safer to kind of expand into Naturia Beast. So there was typically like a Needle Fiber play, or if Recover was in the graveyard, we kind of use Levianer to bring back that, and then like Special Hat Tricker and go Naturia Beast. And we always had an awkward like Levianer left, and we always had either Chaos Emperor or Judgment on our hand, so we wanted to add a rank 8 that kind of helped protect our board, and this card does just that. So it's a phenomenal addition. I really like it. And then we play Levianer the Sea Dragon. We weren't playing this last format, but because of Minerva, the Lightsworn Maiden, the tuner that we added to the deck, which is a 3. This card is very helpful just to abuse your Safer, abuse your Necrogardna, and extend your boards even more. So I think that's a perfect card to include. For our synchros, Wonder Magician. This is your target for Needle Fiber during your opponent's turn. This was kind of the best option that I could find. Not only can you sink into 8s with it if you have Lumina or the Dark Lumina on the field, but you can summon it and use it to pop a spell and trap, so it's kind of interruption in and of itself, and then it's a card trooper. If it dies, I just get a +1. It's also a light, so you can honest it, which is kind of cool. The Naturia Beast, obviously, this is a powerhouse card. You always want to see this going first. Black Rose Dragon. This kind of falls along the same line as Exciton Knight, but because of Master Rule 5 and the freedom to synchro as we please now, having a board wipe that you can do with just Goblin Dirk and the Minerva the Maiden, which is also searchable, this is a really good option. And you can drop this and then use like Safer or Levianer to extend your boards after the board is clear, and you know that you're not going to have any issues with back row or whatnot. Borrowload Salvage. The idea here being, again, another level 8 synchro that we can drop turn 1. There is a play with this, and what's his name? Skull Guy, the Link 4 Skull Sejard, that lets you get him with Skull, which is really strong. So he's another good turn 1 option. Play Omega, and then our last synchro. Omega's great, by the way. I mean, you can abuse the same things you can abuse with Levianer, and then Trishula, the one of, but this card is great that, it's a blowout. 4 links, Needle Fiber, this is obvious. Turn 1, this is the card you really want to see. It can really help you get to your Naturia Beast plays, which is huge. Skull Guy, there's a play with this that lets you get that and Borrowload, and also a card that I really like, or a thing that I really like with this card is it lets you summon Christia, which is a card that we side deck, which is really strong. Curious, only 1. You only need 1 of it. And then Gravity Controller to ditch Minerva and open up your board. So, that is our extra, and then we're going to go into our side real quick. Again, this side is kind of like just I don't want to say temporary, but we don't really know the meta just because of the way that tournaments have been kind of suspended indefinitely for the next few months. So once the meta is a little more established, this might change. 2 Archlord Christia. This card is great. It just adds to your first turn boards. And what's interesting, I mean, you've gotten it off in tournament, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, like with Minerva.
Or at least last format.
Yeah, with Minerva being a fairy and with Honest being a fairy, you can drop this with its effect more readily than you would think. And that's another reason we play Gravity Controller, is if you have Minerva face up in your extra deck and you have this in your hand, or in your extra monster zone, and you have this in your hand, you can kind of control the number of fairies in your graveyard by sending it for Gravity Controller and then dropping Christia. So that's a really strong play. Double DD Crow, really strong. Good against all kinds of stuff. We still do the Kaiju engine. This deck tends to struggle really hard going second just because Appaloosa pretty much shuts it down and you really need your normal summon to stick. So the Kaijus are great. We play the 4 and then we play the 2 spell cards. And this is great because if you do mill it, you can use it to search for a Kaiju. We are only siding 1 Galaxy Cyclone. This deck doesn't have a huge problems with back rows, in the sense that you typically have so many options that you can kind of just out-resource them depending on, you know, obviously they have a bunch of Solemns or something, you're not going to get through that, but you can out-resource them more easily than you would think. This is strictly in here as an out to Mystic Mine. This deck loses pretty hard to Mystic Mine, and we don't want that, so having that in there and, you know, milling it early, you never want to draw this card, obviously, but if you mill it early, it kind of puts your opponent in an awkward situation. Excuse me. 2-Dimensional Barrier. This card is insane now. With Master Rule 5, I have a strong feeling that we're going to be seeing a lot more of this card in the coming weeks. And then finally, 2 Breakthrough Skill. This is a great card for Rogue, just because you can mill it and then negate any problem effects, like Fossil Dyna, for example, that, you know, could be shutting you out. So, again, make sure to comment, like, subscribe, click the bell, yada, 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 and let us know what you guys think. But that's our April 1st list. I hope you enjoyed it. Take it easy.